So I'm really excited to introduce our speakers. As if you stuck around for the last chat, or if you're new, our person, the Power to Fly rep is going to be Sienna J. Brown. Sienna is our global DEI strategist at Power to Fly. She's the global director of that program. And as an educator, expat, and entrepreneur, Sienna's mission is to teach driven women how to secure remote work opportunities aligned with their bigger missions and provide them with freedom and flexibility. Sienna's company that she started for this is absolutely amazing. She also has a podcast that you should absolutely check out. Over the past 6 years, Sienna's focus has been working with companies and employees to create more diverse and inclusive workspaces that have a positive impact on people's personal as well as professional lives. So Sienna is going to be joined in conversation by Ann Hiatt. Ann is a leadership strategist. She received her initial business training during 15 years as the executive business partner to Jeff Bezos, CEO of Amazon, in case you're new to the planet. And she was also chief of staff to Eric Schmidt, who was the CEO and executive chairman at Google and Alphabet. Ann now consults with executives and companies across the globe to reverse engineer their moonshot goals and get results. Ann is a sought-after international speaker, angel investor, and sits on several boards in the UK. She recently relocated from the Silicon Valley to Europe and brings with her a unique perspective on what it takes to succeed in business today. In 2021, Ann published her first book, Bet on Yourself, with HarperCollins. So welcome to the stage, Ann. Sienna, I am going to turn the floor over to you. Take it away.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Megan. And I am so excited to have you here and have you share your wisdom, knowledge, expertise, and experience with the people here at Power to Fly who are tuning in. So welcome.
It's going to be super fun. Thanks for having me, Sienna. This is great.
Yeah, of course. No, I'm really excited. Okay, so Ann, let's dive right into it because I know that we only have 30 minutes. You recently publish your book, Bet on Yourself. And so I would love to, number one, just congratulate you. And then number two, really talk a little bit about your career journey. And so I'd love to hear, when was the first time that you really felt like you got to bet on yourself?
I feel like this is a recurring theme. It's not just one and done for me, for sure. And as I've been not only in the process of writing the book, but now when we're kind of at this other side-ish part of the pandemic and we're being a little reflective of looking back on our careers and thinking about how we want to move forward, it's such a gift to be able to look back and see what's worked for us, what fills us up, and what we can do without. So I think the first time I bet on myself was actually my very, very first job when I was 16 years old, was at a startup of 5 people that had been founded by 2 brothers who were recent grads of Harvard Business School. And they started this little company in Redmond, Washington, where my family had moved in 1985. And that was my unintentional introduction into tech, this really small company. Then I went to University of Washington and I graduated just after the original dot-com bust. So I graduated from undergrad in 2002. Seattle's a very tech-heavy economy, so everything had kind of disappeared overnight. So what seemed like an enormous disadvantage of the timing of when I was entering the workforce for my first real job after university ended up being the greatest blessing in disguise, because it was only because of the limited options available to me after graduating that I even applied to Amazon, which is a whole other story I'm happy to go into about. It took me 9 months of interviewing from start to finish to get that first job. But once I did, obviously that changed the course of my life, because I literally sat in the desk physically closest to Jeff Bezos's in the company for 3 years. And that was my first time of really making a huge bet on myself, because I had not studied like engineering. I didn't know anything about technology. I didn't know anything about e-commerce, which, you know, nobody did, because this is 2002. We were inventing e-commerce at the time. But it was, the first time where I really had to just realize that it was okay, that I was not an expert, and learn to ask the right questions and really tolerate the many failures that come along the way with learning really, really fast. So that was the first of many times. Yeah.
I love that. And I also love the fact that we actually know each other, because we're going to get into some good conversation here. Something that I was going to say, and I know that you talk about this often, but you were talking about the proximity between your desk and Jeff's, right? And I don't want to focus on this too much, but you talk a lot about the importance of the people that you have closest to you. And so I'm sure that there are a lot of our listeners here today that would say, ooh, I don't know if I would be able to. How did you kind of handle that? Did you feel a sense of imposter syndrome? And more importantly, how did you, again, bet on yourself to overcome that, especially as you were just starting out?
You're absolutely right. For me, the biggest, when I say indicator, that for me, the common denominator among the companies or teams or people working on community projects that are successful and those aren't, for me, it really comes down to the who, much more than the how and the why part of your business plan. It's so easy to get distracted by, product market fit and cap tables and investment strategies. And really, I think the biggest indicator of future success, especially if you're trying to do something innovative, is really assembling the right team, being surrounded by the right people. That was really illustrated to me by Jeff Bezos when actually after 3 years, I left to go pursue my plan A career, which was to be a professor. I left Amazon to do a PhD at Berkeley. And we had interviewed what felt like thousands of potential candidates. And it was getting to the end where we only had like a couple weeks left and I couldn't change the date of the start of grad school. And so I went to Jeff and I said, look, we have to reconsider some of the top scoring candidates. And he just said, absolutely not. He said, I am not going to hire someone that I don't feel like will be someone I have to hold back rather than push forward. And that has become my mantra in hiring in the 15 plus years since that day. Is I always want to surround myself with people who are so ambitious, so passionate and value and mission aligned that their work pulls them rather than the other way around. Because careers are long, hopefully lives are long, and we really need that energy exchange where it gives a lot to us. And so that was the first time I really had that cemented for me. Now, the other part of your question was like, how did I get over those moments of imposter syndrome? That was a long journey. I thankfully was so young when he interviewed me. I was like 20, almost 22. And I think it was just the naivete. I just didn't know any better than to just be myself. And I was unintimidated by him. Well, I should have been. He had been Time Magazine's Person of the Year in 1999. In Seattle, he was a local celebrity. He was on the cover of the Seattle Times every day. So I definitely knew who he was. But I just thought what he was doing was innovative and fun and interesting. And it wasn't until I sat in that chair for like a good month or so that the terror set in of being like, what have I signed up for? I don't know how to do any of this job, let alone perfectly. But actually, it was an early indicator. And I'm really glad I started my career at this irreplicable moment in time when the internet was brand new, Amazon was brand new, technology was brand new. And that meant I was surrounded by people, no matter how senior they were in the company or how fancy their title sounded, we were all making it up as we went. So it gave me permission to also ask some questions that I don't know the answers to, try some stuff, figure out, okay, that didn't work, and use that failure to maximize my learnings, pivot really fast, and then keep going. Because I saw that modeled around me every day. And I'm so grateful because honestly, risk-taking is not my nature. It is my nurture. I am a perfectionist to all the faults possibly tied to perfectionism. It very much held me back when I was younger. I was so afraid of disappointing people or getting embarrassed or asking a stupid question. And tech just yanked me out of that comfort zone and did not give me any way to continue that. You just got thrown into the deep end of the pool. And that is something that I have had to learn over and over again. I'd love to say I learned that really early and then it didn't bother me again. Like, definitely not. But one of my favorite things is a social scientist recently. I heard her interviewed on a podcast and I can't remember her name, but she reframed this as, instead of thinking of it as imposter syndrome, think of it as an imposter moment. So instead of it being this like permanent diagnosis of condition that defines you, you recognize that these moments come to everyone. Everyone without fail has this moment, and you can just acknowledge it to yourself, say, off you go, thank you very much, you're not serving me, and then you just continue on your way rather than fearing that that defines you. And that's something I learned again and again, but it came back to me at the very end of my 12-year career at Google. So after grad school, I worked at Google for 12 years. And it was towards the end of that tenure in 2017, I was with Eric Schmidt, who was chairman at the time. And he was speaking at Vivitech in Paris. And he was the speaker right before newly elected President Macron. He was giving a brand new speech and he was a little bit nervous, which was unlike him. And so I had this notebook that I always kept notes, especially for his new speeches, where I was like, okay, that joke didn't really work, or we need some more examples to kind of illustrate this very technical principle. And so I've been keeping my notes, and he came off stage and I was ready to give my feedback. But he came to me with just such sincerity. And he said, was that okay? And I just put my notebook down and I looked at him, I was like, you're Eric Schmidt. Like, of course that was okay. And he said, sometimes I still have to remind myself that I'm not little Eric from Virginia anymore. He had been CEO of Google for 20 years at this point, and this was his third company of being a CEO. So if Eric Schmidt can have an imposter moment, any of us can. It gave me permission to have those as well. I still have to remind myself I'm not little Ann from Seattle anymore sometimes.
I love that. And I mean, you spoke on so many different things that I really want to highlight, but I think the importance of like that imposter moment versus imposter syndrome, right? Like, this is not who you are. You're so capable, you're worthy. So for all of you who are listening, I hope that y'all are taking notes, hearing these stories from Ann, and then also feeling inspired that, again, throughout your journey, the sense of reinvention, the sense of alignment, the sense of continuously finding and redefining your purpose is something that's so important. And I want to just highlight a little bit, like, your life goal, right, is to quote unquote maximize every moment to create a life of achievement, adventure, and authenticity. And you've done that in so many different ways, from the personal to professional, right? But I would love if you could share with some of the individuals who are listening, what are some action-oriented steps that you've gone through to really be able to make this come true for yourself?
I mean, how much time do we have? This has been like a lifelong journey. A couple of things I want to share that I really feel like a lot of this direction, when in the times where I felt really aligned and I had that good energy of a mission pulling me, really comes down to the core basics. Don't get distracted by, all these other more complicated. Sorry, I'm in such a squeaky chair. I swear I didn't squeak until I was live on camera. I'll try and settle. So there's a couple things that come to mind. First was early in my career, I decided 3 factors that I was going to make decisions on career-wise. My guiding principles are, I want to first work for a leader that I not only like, but I want to become like. So seek out those who I want to emulate. I want to learn those leadership practices from them, and I want to run teams the way they do. Second is, I want to learn as much as possible, as fast as possible. And then that needs to be niched down. What do I want to learn? What does that look like? How do I get that experience? By owning a project or by volunteering for something, maybe a cross-pollination, a cross-collaborative project, etc. But get real specific about what you want to learn in this, in either your current role, if you're an entrepreneur, or if you're starting something new, what is this next chapter going to teach you? And then third is it disruptive? Now, it doesn't have to mean you've invented some world-changing AI algorithm, whatever technology. It can be, are you disrupting yourself? Are you getting outside of your comfort zone? Are you moving yourself into maybe new circles of people who think differently than you do, who come at their work or their life from a different cultural perspective or a different stage? Are they more senior to you, more junior to you, who have fresh perspectives? So I look for surrounding myself with, again, we're going back to the leaders I want to become like, and the teams that will make me my best self, what I'm going to learn, and really seek out opportunities to learn it. And third, am I disrupting myself, an industry, or a team? And when those 3 things are true, I find that it's kind of a way to engineer serendipity. This is how some people look like they're just so lucky. There's a way to create that luck, because when you have those 3 things really clear in your mind, opportunities that might have just passed you by because they were in their infancy, it's just a nugget of a possibility of something, you will recognize that when otherwise you would have missed it. And you'll recognize it much earlier than other people who won't take advantage of it. So I think that's a great way to create your own luck. I have a lot of other ideas, but I feel like I've been talking.
I love that. No, I love it. And also, I just want to name for everyone who's listening right now, if you have any questions, thoughts, things that you want to share, definitely drop it in the chat, and I will be bringing those to Ann for the next 15 minutes of this conversation. But I love this. I was like, I want to go on so many tangents just because I feel like you have such an interesting story, Ann. But I really want to lean into something that you were saying around, again, like the 3 values that you've created for yourself, right? Or the things that you really want to emulate. For those individuals who might be wanting to step in or doing a mid-career pivot, what suggestion would you have for them for how could they start trying to understand or define, like, what is my purpose, right? How can they start leaning into that?
Such a great, important question. I hope everyone is asking themselves. So I started my career after a global disruption. Around 2008, I was a couple years into my career at Google by then, and then the economic crisis happened. Our stock value went underwater, the company strategy changed. Right at the moment where I felt like I finally had my feet under me, I knew how to get things done in this Google environment, which is very different from any other company that I've been exposed to. I finally felt like, great, now's my time to like be seen as a leader and get these big projects. And then everything kind of went crazy. So those of you who are feeling like this was my opportunity to level up and then the whole world went nuts, I get you. I feel that, I understand. And I did that because I left Google after 12 years to found my own consultancy, not knowing that was less than 1 year from the pandemic happening. And I left my safety nest cocoon of my Google family and was out on my own as a solopreneur at the time. So I'm with you, I understand. So I think it comes down to a couple of things. And I think your question is honed in on exactly the right thing. You need to know your individual mission. That sounds easy. And then you go to write it and you're like, it's really like easy to get like bewildered and turned around. So I started to look at, where do I find myself getting into that flow state? Stephen Kotler, if you haven't read, he's got a great book around flow state. If you find yourself losing time because you're reading about something, or on the weekends or at work, you're spending 80% of your time like obsessed with a particular theme, that's a good indicator that that is mission and value aligned for you. Like, what are those rabbit holes that just pull you forward? So start just maybe keeping a little notebook or a file on your phone where you're like, wow, this really sucked me in, this podcast, this theme, and look for those common denominators. And from there, do what corporations normally do. It's rare for an individual to do it, but I've done this over usually around every 3 to 5 years. I do this for myself, where I write down what are my individual values and what is my personal mission statement. I did this as an entrepreneur at Amazon and Google. I definitely do that now as an early startup founder. And so then I created a mission statement. My current mission statement is I want to discover and empower underrepresented entrepreneurs through actionable education and mentorship. Now, the first word in that, thank you, that took a long time to come together.
That's strong, go ahead.
So, and that really helps me because I didn't know who I wanted to consult for. And it helps me know what clients am I going to take? What projects do I want to work on? What skills do I need to develop? But actually, the first word in that mission statement was the last one I added. And this is what I want to bring out to all of you right now. I think you're here because you're aligned with this already, but if not, I added the word discover and empower underrepresented entrepreneurs because I found a lot of people hadn't yet self-identified as entrepreneurial. They hadn't yet seen themselves with that capability because maybe they're like, well, I would never like start my own company. That doesn't mean you're not an entrepreneur. You can be an entrepreneur. You can be a leader in your community, in your family, among your friends. And then the second thing I want to offer to you is, once you have these mission and vision and values really clear for yourself, second step is mentors. And I think you and I have talked a lot about mentorship in the past, but for me, it really takes two forms. I would start with what I call as avatar mentors. An avatar mentor is maybe even a compilation of multiple people, like people you admire, that you can shove them together and you create this ideal self for yourself, this future self 10 years from now. And this avatar mentor is my favorite because they do not need to know you exist. I have people who've been my mentors for over a decade who have no idea they exist. So this is a way where the internet is a huge advantage for us because we can look at, like, okay, for example, one of mine is Brene Brown, love everything. And so I think, okay, if Brene Brown is going to be my avatar mentor, how does she get her start in writing books? Actually, she self-funded her first book because every publisher turned her down, even though she was a full academic with a PhD. Like, sister, yes, she bet on herself. And she wrote that book and self-funded it and took out a huge loan and took a big risk on herself. So I thought, okay, that's how she got started. Don't look at her with like her Netflix special and her TED Talk. Like, that's not where she started. She started there. So you can kind of reverse engineer the success you hope to have. Like, yes, I would love to give a TED Talk. Yes, I would love a Netflix special. But you can reverse engineer the steps to get there through your avatar mentors. Sarah Blakely's on there, like Michelle Obama. Like, I got some power women on this. But then once you have that and you can kind of see the patterns and you think, okay, in order to get to there, here's some steps that I see are common denominators. Then you get the second version of your mentor, which is a sponsor. Now, the sponsor is different because, one, they know you exist. they have a personal relationship with you. And I want to encourage you, instead of having somebody who's 10 years ahead, your sponsor should be somebody who's just 1 or 2 steps ahead of you. And that's important for a couple of reasons. One is somebody who knows you, but most importantly, they just went through the doors you want to go through or sat down at the tables you want to sit at very recently. So they remember exactly how they felt. They remember how they got there. They remember the people that walked them through that door. And so they're really empowered and they have those fresh contacts and how-to manuals ready to go to help invite you into the doors that you can't open for yourself. So once you have the avatar mentor that shows you the pattern, then you know exactly what to look for and most importantly, what to ask for of these sponsors, because that's much easier to get a yes, because all those people, if they're that awesome that you chose them as a sponsor, they're in high demand. So make it easy for them to create these opportunities for you.
And I was like, I'm taking mental notes. We have to have a coffee and talk about this a little bit more. But I think something that's also so important is, again, like the avatar mentor and the sponsors and tying this back into your purpose, right? So Ann gave us some really great resources and ways to walk through, okay, well, how can you kind of start thinking about what is your purpose, et cetera? What is your mission statement? And then how can you find that those avatar mentors as well as sponsors, and also figuring out what does my ideal self look like and how do I now show up as that person before you feel like you're ready. And we have about 7 minutes left. I want to do two things. I'm going to ask us a question from the audience, and then I really want to give space for you to be able to talk and share more about Bet On Yourself, both the book and the podcast and all of the fantastic things. So one question that we have from Carolyn that really aligns with what you were sharing is, how do you protect your bandwidth when several opportunities meet your mission and development needs and interests? And I also want to throw in there with you, and also life, right? Because when you were making transitions, it was a whole life transition. So how do you protect your bandwidth, your self-care while you're going through those changes?
Hello, pot, kettle. Like I cannot pretend that I have this figured out or I don't make this mistake over and over and over again. In fact, now when I get home from work, nearly every day, the first question my husband asks me is, what did you say yes to today? Because I just get so excited about stuff and I want to help. It's really hard. So I do it all wrong. But here's what when I have those moments of like, what have you done to yourself? You're not serving anyone if you can't, if you're burying yourself in work. I do have to, I think buried in that question is the answer. Consistently go back to, and this is why I think it's really important to literally articulate and write down mission, values, whatever, right? So then I go back to I think 10-year plans are overwhelming, but I do think 10-year target of how am I going to measure success? For some people or businesses or companies, it's through volume, like number of people you're serving, or maybe it's a particular price point or expertise that you've got or an award you've won. Decide how you're going to measure success, because this is going to be tied to your North Star. From that, don't worry about the 10-year, 5-year, whatever plan, because who knows? We didn't see the pandemic coming. I think really what we can control now, especially now when everything's changing so rapidly, is do a 30, 60, 90. A 30-day, this is really a 1 month, 2 month, 3 month plan. This quarter, what can I control? And then stretch it just a little bit about that. Your 30, 60, 90 should include a lot of very specific, actionable steps with a deadline. By the end of this quarter, I want to have accomplished this. And then add an element of something you can't control. For example, let's say you have this amazing product that you want to get out there. You can't force people to buy it. For example, my book. I can't decide how many people are going to buy it, but I can decide where I show up. How many podcasts am I doing? How many conferences am I going to do? How many, whatever. And then I look at the data, like how is that converting and where am I using my time? And then when I remove my emotion from it and I can just look at the data of like, my goal is to serve as many people as possible, especially those who are underrepresented and need this beautiful elite business education that I've been given by my career. Then I know I keep my eye on that North Star, but I don't get overwhelmed because it's just my 30, 60, 90-day plans. Then I look at the data, pivot, repeat, and off we go. It keeps me from being overwhelmed and allows me to say yes to things right now and maybe later to others that I think are value aligned, but now is not the right time strategically.
I love this. So recapping, we have the mission, the vision, the values, that as your guiding light, how to find your purpose. You also shared some great tips on how to do that when thinking about sponsors, as well as the mentors that we're looking at, right? Really being able to say, how are we creating those avatar mentors? There we go. And then also talking about how are we shifting from not imposter syndrome to imposter moment. So we have a lot of really great questions in the chat, but y'all definitely feel free to reach out and connect with Ann. But Ann, I really want to give you a chance to say, tell us a little bit more about Bet On Yourself. So you were saying that the book is coming out soon. You can control showing up in amazing spaces like these. So all of you who are listening, definitely Google Ann Hiatt, Bet On Yourself, check out the book. pre-order it, all those good things, and also listen to her podcast because she has an amazing podcast as well. But Ann, I want to give you space in these last 3 minutes to talk about what can we expect to learn about ourselves, learn and kind of implement in the book. If it's anything close to what you shared with us in this past half an hour, y'all should already be on Amazon going to buy it. Unintended, but also, and tell us more.
Thank you. Well, if there was only one thing to remember, it's go to betonyourselfbook.com, because from there I've got links to all my socials. I would love for this to be a two-way conversation. So please go there, ask me your questions that we didn't get to today. I want to keep this going. There's links to everywhere you can buy the book. Honestly, anywhere you buy books or audio, it's there. And if you buy in the pre-sale period between now and October 12th, which is launch day, I am giving you huge amounts of free resources that it's got a full workbook that accompanies the book, because not only is, okay, so the book is written in these narratives. I've got these hilarious, adventurous, ridiculous moments from irreparable moments in time at the start of the internet and start of these companies that are part of our everyday lives. So it's interesting, it's fun to read, and I hope you enjoy the stories. But most importantly to me is that you can use this as a playbook. And at the end of each chapter, there's something that I call an ROI sprint, which is normally ROI is return on investment, but this is recognize, own, and implement. So I give you some challenge questions at the end of each chapter, so that not only is this how it worked for Jeff Bezos, or in the book, I use my career as a case study, where I've translated the best practices of these super performers for us normal people. And then I give you some challenge questions to ask yourself, so you translate that into a playbook. Beyond just that, I've written a whole entire supplementary workbook that you get for free if you buy it in the pre-sale period. So go buy it, send your order confirmation to hello@annhiatt.co. It's all on the book's website, so don't worry about memorizing everything. And I'll give you all these free resources immediately, including free full chapters right now, so you don't have to wait for launch day. But honestly, launch day is only a few days away, so won't be long before it shows up on your doorstep. So.
I love this. And first of all, I just want to acknowledge you and thank you for being here, for engaging this conversation. This brought a lot of joy to my day, so I really appreciate that. And also, I just want to name again, so for those of you who are watching, we just dropped a Bet on Yourself in the chat, so definitely check it out. And we're sharing free resources. Also, I'm going to name Q4 is right around the corner, right? So she shared with us how can we create our 30, 60, 90-day plans for growth. You'll be able to get access to the resources, chapters of the book, etc. So now is the time. And with that, Ann, I just want to say thank you so much again. It was so amazing getting to chat with you.
Thank you, Sienna. See you soon.
Bye.